Hi, I'm Dr. John Demartini. I once lived on the streets, but today I get to travel over the world and get to share from my heart through teaching what it is to help people live amazing lives and do something extraordinary with their life. And I'm blessed also to be one of the passionate few. I just had an amazing opportunity to have a great interview by Omar. Wow, fantastic questions. He got to stuff that most people don't get to. And all I can say is that if you want to go do something amazing in your life, stay tuned and basically watch this show, because this show is definitely an inspiration not only for me as an interviewed person, but also the people that are going to be able to listen to this and do something amazing with their life.
Welcome to this very special episode of the Passionate Few podcast today. It's your host, Omar. And today I'm extremely excited because we get to sit down for our round 2 interview with none other than world-renowned human behavioral specialist and expert, Dr. John Demartini. And while Dr. Demartini has spent the last almost 40 years speaking to millions of people around the world, sharing philosophies on how they can make their life work, their business work, their relationship work, their mindset work, and how to do the internal work to manifest in the external, you'll be blown away to hear some of those hyper-focused strategies here today in this interview. So I really want to encourage you guys to sit back, relax, enjoy this powerful interview from a man who studied from thousands of books in over 260 different disciplines, ranging from biology, sociology, economics, and more, to also authoring over 40 plus books and taking his passion and insatiable desire for hunger, sharing it with the world, and implementing some of the most prolific concepts ever spoken, including his value determinations assessment that helps you understand what your truest values are and what it is that's guiding your life to this very moment. And truly, Dr. Demartini is somebody who has become obsessively passionate about helping people unlock the limiting blocks that they perceive in front of them and perceiving things to be on the way instead of in the way. So with no further ado, I promise you'll be blown away if you enjoy this interview to the very end with our round 2 interview with the incredibly gracious, inspiring, and always grateful Dr. John Demartini. Enjoy. Thanks so much for being on the show again, Doctor.
Thank you again.
So let's talk a little bit about what you're most known for, and that's the value system. Can you share a little bit about, how that value system came about and why you think it operates most people's lives, even though they have no idea what's governing most of their lives?
Well, it really emerged late 70s, early 80s in my life, because I found that so many people were saying they wanted to do something, and I found that not everybody persisted in the achievements of what they were saying. And I also noticed that sometimes people were looking up to people, minimizing themselves to them, trying to be like other people, and then finding themselves falter and beat themselves up when they didn't do what they thought other people were able to do. And I was looking into what's the motive for that, and what's stopping people from achieving what they want. I also asked people how many want to be financially independent, and everybody would put their hand up. I mean, literally out of 10,000 people put their hand up in an audience. And then I would ask how many are financially independent, and I had 7 out of an entire audience. Now, it was a general populist audience, but still, I thought, what's the difference? Why are people having so many fantasies and these ideals and then not living it? And that led to the understanding of human values. Every human being has a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most to least important in their life, that is evolving through their life. So at any moment in time, that set of values is filtering their reality, and it's affecting their perceptions, decisions, and actions. And it's making, in a sense, decisions based on what they think at that moment will give them the greatest advantage over disadvantage, greatest reward over risk in their brain at risk assessment area. And then they're acting accordingly. And so when they're making a decision, if they have a higher value on buying consumables that depreciate in value so they can feel like the lifestyles of the rich and famous, more so than having a value on buying assets that actually go up in value that they can accumulate and build financial independence from, they'll immediately go and get their money and spend it on things and then wonder why they beat themselves up going, why can't I get ahead financially? Why can't I save money? Why can't I, why do I always have a run out of money at the end of the month? And the hierarchy of their values dictates their financial destiny. The hierarchy of the values dictates their relationship. It dictates their business. It dictates everything. In fact, when you hire a CEO, if I know what their values are, I know how they're going to manage people. And if they're hiring me to consult with the decision-making on hiring a CEO, I want to know what those values are because I know where that's going to take the company.
Right.
So the values of a person have a major impact on every decision, every perception, every action they take, and how they project their values onto other people and how they inject the values of others into themselves, and the interplay between those two in dialogues and in transactions and in relationships.
So what you're saying essentially is that people are governed by their values whether they know it or not, and that a lot of times those values are really not what they actually think they are, correct? Meaning most people live in delusion.
Most people, what they expect and believe are their values aren't. And many people think they can just pick them out of the air and say, okay, well, I'm going to now start putting a value on wealth building or business or fitness. But most people at the beginning of the year do a New Year's resolution.
Right.
And they think, okay, I'm now going to eat better. I'm now going to spend money wiser. But what's happened is they had a temporary void from around December 15th to about the 30th, where they spent more money than they normally do. So they're kind of having a lack mode. And then they have eaten more than they normally do. So now they have a temporary void that's going to drive a temporary value. I'm now going to not overeat, and I'm now going to not spend my money the way I'm going to save. And they do a resolution, and 3 weeks later, it's over. They're back into their normal pattern. So you can't just artificially go, okay, these are now my new values. You have to make new associations in the brain and neuroplastic remodel the brain with stacked up associations to actually change value systems. Any value could be changed and embedded into a person and redone. But you can't just artificially go, I'm just going to make it that, without actually restacking. And we constantly are being bombarded by things that stimulate and sedate value systems in our life. And so they're modeling and changing, but most people aren't aware of it. And they compare themselves to others and think, oh, those are the people I admire. That's what I want as my values. And they think that's what it is. But I always look at what your life demonstrates. Your actions reflect your values. Your life demonstrates your values. And what that is tells me what's really important to you. So I can look at my life and I go, okay, what do I do every day? If anybody knows me, they know I'm going to be teaching somewhere. And they know that I'm going to be doing a seminar. They know I'm going to be traveling somewhere because I live full-time traveling. And they know I'm going to be researching every day. And you can rely on me to do that, but you can't rely on me to be working out every day, although I did 40 push-ups this morning. You can't rely on me to do, hanging out with socializing and partying and, having a beer or something like that. That's just not me.
Yeah.
So the hierarchy of my values is what you can rely on. And whatever's highest is where I'm most reliable, disciplined, and focused, and you can rely on me being there. And I'm accountable for that. But as you go down the list of values, you'll procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate. And if you don't know what those values are, you'll set goals that aren't really high on your values, and you'll beat yourself up wondering, why am I not getting somewhere?
I love that. And that's so important because so many entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs listening to this, are setting goals. Oh, I want to make, $100,000. I want to make my first $1 million. I want to, get this amount of subscribers or followers or grow this or grow that. When in reality, a lot of them might be motivated by the fantasy of what they think that will bring rather than just internally loving it. Can you talk a little bit about, because I just attended your 2-day Breakthrough Experience seminar, which I highly encourage you guys from around the world to check out. It was mind-blowing. And you gave a phenomenal example about a 14-year-old kid playing video games and the fact that values exist at every age, at every level. A young kid playing video games requires zero external motivation to follow through. Can you talk a little bit about the illusion of motivation and why most people are suffering because of it instead of getting ahead because of it?
Yeah. Well, because everybody has a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most important to least important, whatever's highest on your value, highest in priority, the thing that is an intrinsic value, you are spontaneously inspired to act on it. You don't require it. Nobody has to remind me for 47 years almost to research, travel, and teach. I love it. This is what I do. You know my schedule. So I love doing that. So nobody has to motivate me to do that. I don't require motivation. I have an intrinsic inspiration or an intrinsic drive to do that. But as I go down the list, cooking, driving, administrative, anything that's low on my values, I delegate. Because I've already learned that I will procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate that. I won't get around to doing it. And if I set a goal that's lower in my values, I devalue myself. And if I set a goal that's higher in my values, I revalue myself. So I learned to do things that are high in priority, delegate lower priorities, because those are the things I'd rather hire somebody else who has a high value on those so they'll get done. So I'm free to do what I have that's high in my values. And then go out and do something that serves people to earn the income to delegate, to pay for the delegation. So I'm liberated so I can live an inspired life and help other people do the same. But if I set a goal to do something that's low in my values, I mean, if I was to set up and say, okay, I'm going to start a new business, a cupcake manufacturing and delivering company, when I don't cook and I don't drive. It's been 29, almost 30 years. In a couple of months, it'll be 30 years since I've driven a car.
Literally, you haven't driven 30
I haven't
years.
driven a car in 30 years.
Just because it's not a priority or value.
Not priority. I learned to delegate anything that's not inspiring to me. Just let it go. Get it off to somebody else.
Now, what about people who are listening to this and go, well, it's easy for you to say you're a multimillionaire, you made millions of dollars, easy for you to pay for delegation, but maybe someone is sort of struggling, or maybe they have money saved, but they feel like, oh, I'd rather do it myself. Why allocate money to delegate when I can do it myself? Right? A lot of people live in that where they're afraid to let go of control, or they feel like, well, I can't afford to delegate. What would your thoughts be to people who are listening and are thinking that right now?
I thought the same exact thing when I was 27 years old. Right at turn 28, I read a book by Alec McKinsey called The Time Trap. And I realized after reading that book that I was going to trap myself doing low priority things that devalued me, that scattered me, that devalued me in the marketplace if I do that. So it was my responsibility to hire people, to find people that actually do something that I want to delegate and would love to do it. So I'm free to do it. So I can go put my energy into things that are most inspiring to me, most productive, most meaningful, that produces the most income, that it expedites me. Because when I can't wait to go to work in the morning to give my service to people, people can't wait to get the service. So my responsibility is to get up and do what I am absolutely inspired to do and give them the opportunity to do the same thing. And every time I create a chain reaction of people doing what they love to do, there's an energy that boosts and appreciates, because everybody's appreciating the opportunity to work. And that appreciates a business. That's what makes it grow.
And that's what builds momentum in it.
That's what builds momentum. That's what called engagement. And the higher the engagement in a company, the more it's competitive, more it can lead.
Now, is there a lag, process or lag time between obviously going out to maybe earn the income to then afford to delegate? Or what would your advice be to people who hear that and go, man, it costs too much to delegate?
Well, it doesn't cost anything to delegate properly. It costs enormously to delegate inappropriately. So what happens is if you go out, imagine this scenario. I did this when I read that book. I made a list of everything I did in a day. Every single item that I did in a day, every action step.
Drive, eat, cook,
everything
wake up,
I
shower,
did in a day.
Everything.
Then the second thing I did next to it was how much does it produce per hour?
Income-wise.
Income-wise, which means that I'm now caring about another human being and doing a service for somebody and generating an income to have the income, to pay for things. And that was eye-opening because I realized that the very thing I spent nearly 10 years of college for was not the highest, which was startling because here I went all those years of schooling and then I found out the thing that I'm doing, that's not the highest priority thing I could be doing, which is a paradox. So I went out and decided that me speaking and going out and engaging and leveraging myself was more productive than doing the clinical work that I was doing that I'd been trained for.
What did you study? If you don't
Well, I'm a chiropractor. I worked in the nervous system and spine,
That's right.
had spinal conditions. So as a result of it, me sitting in a cubicle would make me $1,200, $1,500 a day doing what I was doing, probably an hour. And if I was going out and doing speaking, I could generate $15,000 an hour. So I realized that it's cost effective for me to go out and do what I do best, which is speaking, and then get clinical doctors. So once I figured that out, I went literally in my practice from myself and one assistant, where I'm doing everything and kind of doing stuff that's low in value. Because anytime I do a $20 an hour job when I'm capable of earning way more, I'm devaluing myself. From 15 months after I got that book, 15 months, I had 5 doctors, 12 staff members, and had a 10-fold increase in income.
Wow.
So it wasn't the cost of delegation. It was, I had the accountability to do what I love doing, which is going out and meeting and interacting and networking and engaging people into coming in the practice. And then I trained doctors, very diligently trained them on how to make sure that they took care of the best service. And then I was able to prioritize my patients and work with the most influential people that had the biggest influence. So that means when I was practicing, I was working on the highest quality patients that I could work on that would have the biggest influence to help me grow. And I also worked on the most significant thing I could do to build the practice. And then I hired people to do everything else. And I was liberated.
So how old were you when you made this realization?
28.
So from that moment on, you just right away got associated to what were your values, what were not your values, and then acted accordingly?
Yeah, I went through and looked at what produced more, what was most meaningful, which is my values. Because it's got to be meaningful, productive, and it's got to have the least spread versus the biggest spread. You want to delegate where the biggest spread is because you make surplus labor value out of other people. That's an economy scale. And then what happens is they end up getting to do what they love doing. And don't ever hire anybody that doesn't have an absolute inspiration to do what you want to do, or you're going to depress.
What about people who hear that and go, well, shit, where am I going to find an inspired executive assistant? Or where am I going to find inspired this or that? Or
Well, what's interesting is that when you're inspired, you draw and magnetize people to you that's more inspired.
That's very interesting, because with the show, that actually happened. A lot of people behind the scenes on this came because they were attracted to the show and wanted to be a part of it. So it's very interesting that you say that.
Absolutely. If you hire in desperation, you'll get desperate people. But if you're hired in inspiration, you attract inspiring people.
Wow.
And you may go through people, a lot of people, to find that person.
Right.
Don't just jump in impulsively to go and get somebody because they look nice or they sound good or they say what you need to say.
Right.
You got to look at what their life demonstrates. So I do a value determination process on every person I'll hire.
And I've taken your value determination test, by the way, which you guys, if you're listening, you can check out in the link here, wherever you're listening to this. We'll set that up for you to understand your value.
It's a 13-step questionnaire that goes in there. And I also asked this one guy, can I share an interesting story?
Yeah.
So this is right about this time when I was reading this book. And I just expanded my office the first step. Because I did 2 expansions after reading the book in literally 15 months.
Wow.
And what was interesting is that there's a guy that came in to sell me a Yellow Page. Now, Yellow Pages aren't the thing today.
Right.
But at the time, in 1983, Yellow Pages were still around. And this guy comes in, a young guy comes in to sell me a Yellow Page ad. And he gets across from me at my desk. I gave him some minutes to try to make a spiel, because I was looking at it, but I really didn't focus on Yellow Page ads.
Right.
I was doing referral. And he comes up, he does this, and he does this absolutely crazy sales process. It was beyond, on a 1 to 10 scale, it was about a -4. It was, and I said, stop. This is not your heart's not here.
Yeah.
This is not you.
Yeah.
This is not what you really want to do. What do you really want to do? I just stopped him cold. And he goes, that bad, huh? And I go, that was the worst sales. I mean, that really sucked, man.
Yeah.
And he goes, that bad, huh? And I go, that was terrible. And I said, what do you really want to do? Because this isn't it. Because I can tell. This is not where your heart's at. You're just doing this because you think you can make some money on it, and you're not. You haven't made any money, have you? He goes, no, I haven't. I said, I can see why. What do you really want to do?
Yeah.
And he goes, really, truthfully, I want to be in the restaurant business. I said, then leave right now and go get in the restaurant business. Go right now. And before you do, I'm going to give you an audio cassette tape called The Psychology of Attainment that I did. And I want you to listen to this thing a few times about how important it is to be authentic to what's true for you. That's where you'll excel. Otherwise, you're going to be banging your head against the wall. So I gave him that. He went on his way. I didn't do the Yellow Page. That wasn't my thing. He goes around. 8 years goes by. 8 years. And my accountant asked me to go to lunch. And he took me to this little super salad place where you go through this line and you get a salad and you weigh it and you pay a fee based on weight.
Yeah.
You've seen one of those things?
Yeah.
And that's not some place I typically go to thing, but that's where he wanted to go.
Right.
So I go there. As I walk in, the guy that was selling the Yellow Pages was standing there with a suit on.
Wow.
And I walked in there and I told Dan, my accountant, I said, go in line, just scan in line, I'll catch up with you. I got to say hi to somebody I see.
Yeah.
So he goes in line. I go up to him, he's talking to somebody there. And finally he turns and recognizes me, he goes, oh my God. And he quickly grabbed me and he pulls me over and meets this guy. He says, this is the guy I was telling you about that made change my life.
Yeah.
And he turns and they go, and we agreed and everything else. He says, I left your place. I went to a super salad and I got me a job at a restaurant. I've got 8 of them, 8 franchises today.
Wow.
He says, I own this restaurant today.
Holy cow.
And I just got tears in my eyes. I couldn't help it. I just got tears in my eyes. I gave this guy a hug right in the middle of his restaurant. You know, these people are going, who in the hell is this guy? But it was so inspiring to see what he did because now you don't have a brake on. You got a gas pedal on, you don't have your brake on. You're not sitting there putting up I should be doing this, I ought to be doing this, what I really want to do, but I got to do this. You're not living in got tos, have tos, must, shoulds, supposed tos, all the imperative language that most people subordinate to other people with. And they're not living by deontologically with duty, they're living ontologically with meaning. And this guy was 8 franchises. And that was so inspiring to hear, literally tear-jerking. And he gave me the lunch.
Yeah.
And before we got down there, he said, it's on me, buddy.
Oh, wow.
This restaurant wouldn't be here if it wasn't for what you said to me.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so those are the kind of things that happen when people are congruent.
Now, do you think most people are capable of this genius, of a genius in some particular area?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anytime you're pursuing challenges that inspire you, you wake up your innovative, creative genius. And anytime you try to avoid challenges that inspire you and try to get an easy life and look for immediate gratification hedonistically and don't embrace the challenges of life, you're going to end up wiping that genius out. But there's a genius and there's a great capacity in all of us to do it. And I've seen people that didn't think they had it and they were beating themselves up because they were doing like Einstein said. You know, if you're a cat expecting to swim like a fish, you're going to beat yourself up. If you're a fish expecting to climb like a tree, like a cat, you're going to beat yourself up. But if you're a cat and you climb a tree, you're going to be great at it. Well, people are basically trying to be great at something that's they think is right for them. They think they should. Their mother or father told them they should. I mean, I got another story.
Absolutely.
Okay, so a guy comes to the Breakthrough Experience, which is my signature program. I've done 1,071 times.
And I've been to him, and I'll be there again.
And he's overweight. He just got out of a heart attack.
Wow.
Okay, and a bypass. He's not even 60 years old yet. And he had a bankruptcy, an IRS audit, a divorce, a loss of kids, a collapsing of his business. I mean, every one of the 7 areas of his life, his health, his inspiration was gone. He was severely depressed and suicidal, and he came into the Breakthrough Experience. And I stayed with him till 2 in the morning. I made everybody go home, and I just sat with him for 2 in the morning till 2 to break through his delusion that he was at. And he said he was just wallowing about what was not working. And I looked at him, and I smiled at him. I said, this is the greatest day of your life. He goes, like, what are you talking about, man? What kind of crap is that? No, this is the greatest day of your life. He said, I don't understand. I said, I can tell from your language, your body language, and everything else, that you were doing a career that wasn't really what your heart was at. And he stared at me for a second, and you could see him processing that. I said, you're a Jewish guy, and you're trying to live and completely show off to your dad. You're trying to prove something to your dad. And your dad wanted you to be a lawyer. He said, that's right. I said, and you married somebody that your mom and dad expected you to marry because she's a good Jewish girl. He says, you nailed it. And you got pregnant and you then felt trapped. He goes, and you're in a business your heart wasn't in. I said, what the hell do you what do you really want to do? He said, what I really want to do is have a fancy car, sports car dealership. I said, that's a big difference.
Yeah, quite the jump.
And
yeah.
he says, and the real truth is, I got an image of a woman, a search image of a woman that my wife didn't match. I said, your body broke down with a heart problem, health problems, career problems, so you could get out of a marriage without having to pay us a huge sum of money, have a heart problem because your heart wasn't into the thing. You got out of a job that you didn't want to be in. You got out of a marriage without having to pay anything because you didn't ask for anything because you didn't have anything. You actually did the wisest thing you could to be able to start your life the way you really wanted to do. And it took you old enough, and I bet it happened. Did your father recently pass away? And he goes, how did you know that? I said, because you were enduring this until your father died. And then everything started to collapse. He goes, you nailed it. In the last 2 years, it just collapsed and my father died. I said, because you had nobody to prove anymore. You couldn't get acknowledgement. You never gave you the acknowledgement because your heart wasn't in it and you weren't great at it. And he goes, you're right. This is the greatest day of my life. He says, now that I think about it, I'm out of a career I don't want to be in, a marriage I don't want to be in, living the way I don't want to be, in a place that I don't want to be. You're right. The guy moved to Florida, got him a car dealership, worked his way up by buying cars and developing his car dealership.
Almost 60 years old.
Yeah. And well, not quite 60, but he's 50, late 50s. And changed his entire structure and got his health in shape, lost all his weight and everything else, and rebuilt his life because he was more authentic then. And many people are living by shoulds and ought tos, supposed tos, got tos, have tos, must, living by the duty of people that they conform under, mothers, fathers, preachers, teachers, conventions, mores, traditions, moralities that aren't even theirs, from religions that aren't even really believed in. And they're running their life by that and trying to be somebody they're not. And envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. And they basically end up wondering why they can't have that vitality and inspiration and drive that it takes to do something extraordinary with their life. Because there's an extraordinary person inside them, and that man brought that out the second he got true to himself. So he was sitting there dormant, and he was not emerging as a human being with an inspiration until he finally found out what's really truthful to him. And he gave himself permission to do it and not worry about what other people think.
So why are most people living in a delusion of it? Is it because obviously nowadays too, with the advent of social media, you have a lot of entrepreneurs saying, hey, you can make $1 million too, you can make 10 million too. you should wake up at 3 a.m. and work out, and you're lazy if you don't. Are those, in your opinion or in your assessment, are those a projection of values onto others?
Yeah, I've met people.
And most people fall for that, and myself included at times. I'm like, man, I should do this, I should do that. And what that does is it subconsciously builds guilt, which then breeds a lack of belief in yourself, and it becomes a cyclical thing to the masses.
You're designed to disbelieve yourself when you're pursuing something that's not true to you. That's designed that way. That's not a weakness.
Wow.
That's not a mistake. That's a perfection. That's your body doing and your psyche doing what it can to get you to be authentic. Authenticity is the only thing that liberates people from the bondage of mediocrity. And what happens is when we're hearing those little voices in there, we're going, we should be doing this. That's not us speaking. That's the injected value, the superego of the outer authority that we've injected in our life that we put on a pedestal. And we have what is called dysmorphia. And I met with a really beautiful supermodel that actually had dysmorphia because she was comparing her body to other supermodels. So she saw this girl that had this beautiful hair she didn't have. Her hair was thinner. So she's beating herself for her hair. And then she saw this other one had these beautiful thighs, and she's beating herself for the thighs. Another one had beautiful breasts, beating herself for this. She was beating herself up. She was one of the most beautiful women in the world, voted by a number of magazines as the most beautiful woman in the world, and was beating herself up because she was comparing herself to individual parts that were highlights of individual, not the whole. And people do that business-wise, financial-wise, social-wise, health-wise, looks. And as long as we compare ourselves to others instead of comparing our daily actions to our own highest values, we'll self-depreciate to wake us up.
Wow. Now, for somebody listening who goes, okay, I'm convinced, Dr. Demartini, I want to get aligned to my values. What's my purpose? How do I get aligned? How do I get clear? I know at your breakthrough event, you talked about how, like when you're in a grateful state, the end goal is love. And so when you're in a grateful state of love and you open your heart and start with what you know, grab a pen and paper to write out your purpose. You start with what you know, you let it grow. But what would be your advice to people? Because I'm sure you've seen this at all your events, people feeling like, I'm willing to work hard, I'm willing to do the work, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead, but maybe I got trapped by this is a secure career path, or maybe I should do this, or I ought to do this, but inside I just know I'm meant for more, but it's risky. Is it really going to work? I have a family now. So what's your best advice to somebody listening who wants to get aligned in their purpose and run versus being bogged down by all these delusions that they don't even know what's real anymore?
You nailed a lot of people. So the way the values are, whenever you're living congruently with your highest value and you're actually prioritizing and living by priority every day, which I learned from Mary Kay Cosmetics. She taught me that 30-something years ago, almost 40. If the second you do that, the blood glucose and oxygen goes into the executive center, which is the forebrain, the medial prefrontal cortex, the middle front part of the brain, which is the most advanced part of the brain. That part of the brain is a governor to physiology, impulse, instincts, and distractions. It's an inspired link into the visual cortex and associated areas. It causes inspired vision. It's a strategic planning center for its assessing risk and reward ratios beautifully. And it also is an executive center where it wants to take action. So the second you're living by priority, the highest values, that part of the brain comes online, and you actually see a vision, you strategically plan out a path on how to get there that's real actions in real time, that's really aligned to values that you're willing to do in small enough chunks where you don't have hesitation on it. And then it wants to execute it, and then it takes away the distractions, which are normally impulsive, that people get a quick fix on or try to avoid something on. Most of our distractions are impulses and instincts that we think are pleasure or pain, which are not. Because there's no such thing as pleasure without pain or pain without pleasure.
And most people seek pleasure without pain, which you said is one of the most dangerous things.
Which is one of the most hedonistic delusions people have.
I want a significant other who's awesome, kind, considerate, compassionate, never complains.
And then they get smacked by the other side, and then they think, oh my God, this is not working, this relationship working, when in fact it's actually just waking you up to the truth about relationships.
And that everybody's a normal human being who has all characteristics, good and bad.
I went through 4,628 traits. I had every one of them. I'm nice, mean, kind, cruel, giving, taking, generous, stingy, honest, dishonest. I have every single trait that I've ever found in a dictionary, and I don't try to get rid of any part. You don't need to get rid of any part of yourself to love yourself. So people go out and they pursue things that are not strategically planned, and then they end up thinking, well, I don't know what the risk-free ratio is, and so I have security over here, and I got an unknown here. So there's no planning. There's no executive function. There's just an impulse. I want a pleasure without a pain. But what I'm here is I've got a comfort zone here, knowing I got this money here and I got security here, and I don't know what's going to happen because I don't have a pathway to get to it without a plan. So if they're going out impulsively to look for an easier life than what they've got, they'll trap and they won't go because the pain of the anxiety that comes from not having a plan.
From uncertainty, yeah.
Yeah, so I always tell people to take the job you have right now and start working on your mission and vision, that what you want. And do a due diligence plan and make sure it's real. And actually think out of everything that could go wrong and what do you do to solve it, kind of meditating on the necessary evils, and then think of what do I need to do to solve it, so you're mitigating the risks and get clear on the plan, and you're dissolving the fantasy and you're really making an objective. Then link the job you have now. How specifically is doing each of these job duties helping me get there? And if you do, you'll have energy going to work while you're building your plan, and then you'll make a transition from what you're doing into that plan. And you won't feel anxiety, you won't feel unclarity.
Purposelessness. Yeah.
You will have purposefulness because it's aligned to your values. Purpose is an expression of highest value. That's what it is.
Now, I know you meditate as well, and everybody meditates sort of differently, but would you recommend people to meditate to help get clarity and download, and understanding from the universe of what they're meant to do? Or I know you have a values assessment test, which helped me tremendously because it helps you get clear on what you really want, right? Because you ask most people, I think you said it best, when you ask most people, okay, what are your values? Because I know people listening to this are like, okay, I want to do this. I want to take action on this, Dr. Demartini. But, I think my values are, making X amount of money. I should be more religious, go to church every weekend, and I want to be giving, right? They're sort of a little bit vague generalities. Can you talk a little bit about like how somebody should actually, like what someone could practically do right now to get aligned in their purpose? Do you recommend they meditate, grab a piece of paper, write down things they like? I mean,
well, meditation, if it's not used as an escape, is very powerful. Meditation, in my opinion, was designed to integrate the mind, to silence the noise, and to be, in a sense, clear enough to be called into action. But many times meditation is used by some gurus that are promoting an idea of one-sided life, which is an opium promoter.
Ultimate peace, ultimate positivity.
Yeah, and those mislead people because then they're actually setting you up, creating a fantasy about how life's supposed to be, and that causes disturbance and noise in the brain when life doesn't match that. Then you're angry at the world because it's not matching the fantasy.
Yeah, why can't I be more positive? Damn it.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So I think that meditation plays a role. And maybe after we do this, I'll show you some of the meditation. I have thousands of written down meditations. But I do believe that actually sitting down and going through what I call the objective value determinants is probably the best starting place. That's why I have that on my website, complimentary to people, because that way they can at least start. And what it is you're looking at how do people fill their space. Because things that are really valuable to you keep around you. How do you spend your time? You make time, find time, spend time on things that are really valuable to you. What exactly is it that energizes you? You have more energy at the end of the day when you're doing something to tie in your values than you do if you're doing low priority things. What exactly is you spending your money on? Look at how your money is being spent. You find money, spend money, and make money for things that are valuable to you. What exactly are you ordered in, organized in? Because you find and make order and organization on things that are focused, high priorities. What are you most disciplined and reliable and most focused on that nobody has to remind you to do that you spontaneously do? I spontaneously do my talking. I walk into hotels when I get into new cities and walk around the hotel looking for a possible seminar to talk to. That's right. My natural modus operandi. And then if not, I'm researching and writing.
Right.
And I'm traveling a lot. So then you look at that. Then you look at what do you think about, visualize, and internally dialogue with yourself about how you would love your life to be that's showing evidence of coming true. If there's no evidence, don't make it. That's not it.
So it's not real unless there's evidence.
If there's no evidence, don't fantasize.
So if you say, I want to live in Laguna Beach oceanfront and have these cars,
and there's no evidence,
$10 million a year, whatever.
There's no evidence of any of those things happen. Those are fantasies, and they'll self-depreciate. That'd be like me saying I want to be an international sex symbol, right? When I hardly even have sex. So that's under. I'm a great. I do teaching. I can do that. That's what my life demonstrates. But the international sex symbol just doesn't show any signs of it. There's no evidence.
Not yet.
No evidence of it. Maybe when I'm 100, I'll start on that. But the reality is that you got to look at what your life demonstrates. So what do you think about, visualize, affirm that shows evidence coming true that you really, really, really want? The next one is what do you converse with others about? Because you constantly want to talk about what's important to you. You'll bring the conversation back to it. What do you keep bringing the conversation to? And when you get to talk about it, you'll talk all night about it. The next one is what inspires you and what's common to the people who inspire you. When I look at my life, the people who have inspired me are all the great philosophers through the ages, the great Nobel Prize winners, the great thinkers, the great spiritual leaders, all the great leaders that have done extraordinary things and overcome amazing odds. Those have inspired me, and so I devour their writings and their readings and their literature and their life stories and things, and I love studying that. Then you look at what is it, the three most persistent, consistent goals that you're pursuing that show evidence of coming true. The 3 things that you have been on your radar and you keep focusing on and you're making progress on it. Like in my case, is traveling the world, teaching, inspiring, reading and learning, and building wealth. Those are the ones that I obviously have done. Then the next one is, what do you love studying about, reading about, learning about, and listening to about most? Because you spontaneously want to learn about what's valuable to you. When you really want to get, if you have something valuable, you meet somebody, oh wow, I'd love to meet them. You go study them. You want to know about them. So those 13 value determinants, if I answer 3 top answers for those and hold myself accountable and then look at what's common to them and see what iterates and repeats itself over and over, you'll see very commonly that there's a pattern in there, and that pattern reveals what's most important, second most important, third most important, by the number of times it shows up on that questionnaire. And then what I do is, now that I know what the top 1 or so is, now I ask myself, what are the highest priority actions I can do today that can help me fulfill that? And then what are the highest priority actions that I can do tomorrow that can fulfill that? And if you ask yourself every single day, what are the highest priority actions, or what is the one highest priority action I can do today to make that come true? And stick to the highest priority as you know, the guy from Keller Williams, Gary Keller.
Yeah.
The one thing, stick to that one thing. If you do that, I found I wrote down the 7 highest priority actions I can do every single day on index cards for a couple of years. I did that after meeting Mary Kay. And then I looked at what was the common thread to all of them. And it came out research, write, travel, teach. So then I already knew what they were, but when I saw that, I went, boom, I'm going to delegate everything off my plate. That's it. That's all I'm going to do, research, write, travel, teach. So I'd let go of everything else.
So, and then as soon as you did that, it's been now 3 or 4 decades.
Then you got energy,
Momentum.
You're inspired, you're visionary, you're unique and original. All the things that happen when you live by your highest values emerge. And you all of a sudden attract more wealth and opportunity, because there's something about that magnetizes, because every human being wants to live authentically. So when they see somebody that's doing that, they're magnetizing opportunity to them because they want that too. And they don't even know why they want it, but it's inherent to live authentically.
So are you saying to some degree that if you have faith on what inspires you, that the universe will sort of serve it? Even
if you live authentically, socially, people can sense that congruency, can sense that inspiration.
Right, there's an intuitive
and there's something about that person you want to be around. And there's something about that you want to be around that because you want to have that by our empathy and mirror neurons. We want to go and figure out how to do that. And it's not that we want to be like them. That's what people confuse. That's why in Breakthrough I have them own the traits of the greats. I go find out where you're already doing it, but you're not recognizing it because you're comparing yourself to them and minimizing where you're doing it, and help them see where it is. And the moment they see it, they realize that they have everything they see in other people. They just don't honor it because they're expecting it to be in a form that's not matching their own values.
Can you talk a little bit about owning the traits of the greats, the exercise, and some of the stories that have come as a result of it? I know I did it at your Breakthrough experience, and it's been transformational for me, but just so the audience listening can get an understanding of what the exercise is and how it can immediately benefit their life to calibrate what's possible, effective immediately for them.
Well, when you walk in a mall and you meet somebody you think is more intelligent or more achieving business, more wealthy, got a more stable family look or relationship, or a hotter babe, or more socially outreached, more socially savvy, and more bigger influence media, more physically fit, credible body or something, or credible stamina and energy, or more inspired. Anytime you meet somebody and you go, wow, they have something, and you're too humble to admit what you see in them is inside yourself, you'll shrink. The second you put them on a pedestal, you'll shrink.
Why do we by default do that?
Because we exaggerate them, we minimize ourselves in relativity.
So we live in a fantasy of what they are.
We are fantasy about who they are. Because in actuality, if you get to know them, you'll find out that they're not who you think.
Right.
But you think that. And you look at all the heroes that are biting the dust right now, they're found out to be villains because people are fantasizing that they're heroes without villains.
Yeah.
I'm a hero villain. I don't try to be a hero without a villain.
Right.
So the second you put them on a pedestal and you minimize yourself, you will inject their values into your life, which will cloud the clarity of your own highest priority value, and you'll lose your focus, scatter yourself, distract yourself, and try to be somebody you're not. That's why Ralph Waldo Emerson said, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. Now, if you go and find out that person that you admire, and instead of just going, wow, they're amazing, I'm not, ask what specific trait, action or inaction, does this individual display that I perceive this person displaying or demonstrating that I admire? Pinpoint it, okay? Then ask the question, where and when do I display and demonstrate? Do I perceive myself displaying and demonstrating that same specific trait, action in my own life? Where was it? When was it? Who did I demonstrate it to, and who perceived me that way? Then go to the next moment. Where did I do it? When did I do it? Who did I do it to? Who saw it? And I go through there and identify where and when I've done it. You will discover, and I've done this on 250,000 people, you will discover that what you see in them, you already have, but you're not honoring it because you're thinking their form is better than yours. So you're not honoring where yours is. As a result of it, you put them on a pedestal, you put yourself in a pit, you think it should be like that, but now you're trying to be in their values and you're going outside your own values and you self-depreciate. And then that's why you'd self-depreciate. The moment you identify where you have it to the same degree as in them, you will find out that you were too humble to admit you had it, but you actually had it. That's why you admired it, because it reminded you of the thing that you love in yourself. And you thought it was about them. Once you see that you have it in them, you play on the same playing field if it's equal. Then you go and find out the downsides of theirs and the upsides of yours, and you neutralize it out by doing the Demartini method. It's a 14-step process.
Right.
When you're done, there's nothing but tears of gratitude. There's appreciation for this person, not an infatuation with them. There's no self-minimization. And you realize that everything you see in them, you have, and it's in your form, and you're honoring in your own values. And then you're stepping up. You're no longer injecting their values. You're giving yourself permission to go back onto your own values. You realize that you're equals, not people you're subordinate to. And then you start attracting people in your life on the same scale that you just did the exercise on. And then you get these amazing opportunities coming in your life. You go, what the hell? Now I'm all of a sudden, we had a lady that did this as an up-and-coming recording artist. And she did this on Beyonce, this exercise on Beyonce. Yeah. And 2.5 weeks later, Beyonce asked her to come and perform at her house.
Wow.
She's like going, she sent an email, she says, you're not gonna believe this, John, but Beyonce, who I did in the break to, just contacted me and asked me to perform at her house. I was going, that is cool. And I've seen people, I had a guy that was doing the creative people at Google. They had a little Quantum Leaks Corporation and they were doing IT and they did the Google creatives, right? They just sat there and owned all the traits in that. And in a matter of months, it wasn't immediate, but within a matter of months, they were at front of Google with a picture of them with those guys being asked by Google to help them with their Google work.
That's incredible. Now, for people listening who say, okay, that sounds like pseudoscience. It sounds like it works, but it sounds a little pseudoscience. How much of that is pseudoscience versus actual, it's just reality? That's the way the universe works.
It's not pseudoscience.
Okay.
It's something reproducible. I can take anybody and do this process. I do it every weekend in the Breakthrough Experience. If you don't understand the principles of it, you might think that. But when you come here and actually do it, and you see the results of it, you realize it's because you're treating yourself differently. Until you value you, the world doesn't value you. And you won't value you if you're comparing yourself to people you put above you. You're going to devalue you.
And media presents things in a way that leads that tendency to unfold.
Well, we put the glitz and the red carpet, we make it look like, wow, they've got this amazing life.
Right.
And I've worked with enough celebrities to know they've got all kind of challenges in their life.
Right, yeah.
They have the other side.
Right, yeah.
And if people don't see that, and they're hidden from that.
And all they see is the highlight reel.
All they see is the highlight. They compare themselves and they beat themselves up. And then what they do is they think, well, that's better. They put it on a pedestal, and then they want to start being a consumer and match it with purchases and get themselves in debt.
And then a lot of times that leads to depression, which is interesting because I wanted to talk about this. You talked about in the Breakthrough Experience, the event, that depression comes when you attach to a fantasy versus appreciating the reality of what you live. Can you talk a little bit about what depression is in your assessment of it?
Yeah, I work with it every week. I have people coming in for depressions of all types, clinically depressed, biochemical involvement. They all come in with their stories.
I say, you don't understand. No, mine's different.
Yeah, mine's different. My psychiatrist told me it's a biochemical imbalance, and I get that weekly.
Yeah.
That's weekly. And I hear that, and I've been...
Or ADHD or whatever.
Yeah, same thing for that. Because the same kid can be at home for 8 hours watching video games with total focus, with no ADHD symptoms.
Inspired from within.
And then they're frustrated by a class that they don't see how it's ever going to help them in their life. No wonder they got ADHD. So, but what happens is a person, when all of a sudden they have depression, it's because they're comparing their current reality to a fantasy about how it's supposed to be. And it's easy to uncover. It just takes a few seconds, really. So when a person comes in, I'm clinically depressed. Okay, depressed about what? Well, my life sucks. I said, that's too vague. What specifically sucks about it?
Oh, my girlfriend broke up with me.
My girlfriend that I thought I was going to marry broke up. Okay, so you had a fantasy that if your girlfriend was there and she didn't break up with you, your life would be happy, and you've been depressed ever since she broke up. Okay, so that means you have a fantasy that there have been all benefits and no drawbacks being with your girlfriend. Well, yeah, I'd be happy if she was here. I go, what happened if all of a sudden you stayed with your girlfriend and she didn't break up with you? What would be the drawbacks to you? Oh, there'd be no drawbacks. That's called a fantasy. Now imagine being with some woman or a man for any length of time without drawbacks. Is that real?
Unrealistic.
No, it's fantasy. So a fantasy is assumed positives without negatives. A nightmare is assumed negatives without positives. So I said, so what would be the drawback of that girl if she stayed with you? I can't see any. Look again. Be accountable. Quit playing in your fantasy. Dig. What would be the real, true, not made up, no bullshit, what would be the drawback if she stayed with her? Okay, well, she did want to do these things, and sometimes I wasn't interested in doing it. So that means you would be having to juggle some of the things you wanted to do to be with her. Okay, what else? She did have a high maintenance cost, and I would have to be constantly push myself. I said, what's another drawback? Okay, our sex life wasn't the greatest. Okay, so if you'd stayed with her, what would have been the drawback with that? Yeah, I probably would have been unfulfilled some of there. Okay, keep going. And I had to crack the fantasy one by one, what the drawbacks of the way you thought it should be, the fantasy.
And this applies to life, business, relationships, everything.
Yeah, then now, as I'm doing that, what's the benefit of actually the way it is now? I mean, I had a guy that was in Australia that wrote a book, interviewed 30-something celebrities that had depression, and wrote a book and became famous for his book on it, and was under medication for depression. And you know, he was this famous guy that's got this thing and this fundraising thing for depressed people and all this stuff. Yeah. And I sat him down at the Swiss Hotel in Market Street in Sydney, and I said, all right, so you run into me for a reason, and I'm going to challenge your model here, because you're basically telling people to go run off to the pharmaceutical drug system because you've never seen alternatives. So he said, well, I said, the exact moment you are suicidal and want to take your life, let's go there. I'd rather not. Let's go there. So I took him to this moment of suicide. And I said, you're running to suicide because your life basically doesn't match what you hoped. Okay, so what were you hoping at the time? Well, I got a job and I was in a career and I was hoping to go up the ladder of the career. And a guy that was leaving to another country, a door opened for me to get in that next step. But instead of me getting it, they brought in somebody from the outside. And then I was resentful to it. And I was trying to undermine this guy, and he had more power than me because of this, and he ended up firing me.
Wow.
And so my career was completely shattered. And all of a sudden, it was like, I don't know what else I'm going to do, and I felt like I missed out on the thing, and I went into suicidal depression, thought about killing myself. And I said, okay, right now you're famous with a book, you've met up all kinds of celebrities, you got a foundation, you've done amazing things. If you stayed in that job, what would have been the drawback? He goes, there'd be no drawback. I'd been happy. I said, that's delusional. What's the drawback if you'd faced? Oh. We started going digging for it. I made $160,000 maximum income, maybe 200 if I was really lucky. How much you making now? He says, 250. I said, now you got a notoriety, you're doing your own thing, you're on your own hours, instead of working for somebody else, going through the grind, going up a ladder, and you probably have to do that over a number of years. What would have been another drawback if you'd done it? Well, I would be selling something and that I would never be known for what I'm doing. And we sat down and we cracked the drawback and added the drawbacks to the goal that he thought he was going to get.
Right.
And as we did that, he eventually popped with tears in his eyes, and he goes, wow, I've been holding on to a fantasy about what that job was going to do. Right now, I can see that would have been a disaster. And I said, exactly. And what you did was part of a higher order, and you were being led by that experience into something more meaningful to you. And now you're known for what you're doing. And now the benefits, can you see the benefits right now? He says, I can. I said, now try to go back to your depression right now. He couldn't. I said, try to go back to it. He said, I can't even access it. I said, because your fantasy's gone. As long as you're holding on to a fantasy, your mind has to balance it with a depression to try to break your addiction to the fantasy, to associate pain with the so-called fantasy pleasures, to try to help you bring yourself back into balance, to get you back into authenticity with real goals that have both sides. And when he finally saw that, he goes, so are you saying that my depression was nothing more than that? I said, yeah. If you want to call it a biochemical imbalance and go take drugs the rest of your life, fine. But I would suggest knocking these fantasies out in your life and clear them out and see if you still need the drugs. Because I've had thousands of people that don't need the drugs afterwards. And that really pisses off those little psychiatrists, I mean.
Of course, yeah.
Psychiatrists. Because they're so used to being representative of the drug industry.
And there's commissions that they get paid out.
Yeah, they have a different thing. Now, I'm not saying that they're not cases where that really is needed and it saves lives. I'm not going to negate that because that does help people. But there's a hell of a lot of people that are taking medications that don't need medication. Lots and lots of people.
Now, that talks also to the emotional balance you talked about at the breakthrough experience. And for me personally, this was probably from all the takeaways, this for me is the most applicable day to day, is that you talked a lot about the importance of, in your day-to-day life, you know, when your emotions kind of get swayed, oh shit, there's traffic, or oh man, there's this, or oh man, there's that, right? There's all these little things that can poke us throughout our day, whether it be menial or relationship, it could be a bigger thing, business, right? And you were saying a lot of times that if you go out into life expecting it to be all pleasure and no pain, or you go out there expecting to see all good and no bad, or upside, no downside, those are moral constructs, right? The good and bad thing. But if you go out into the world, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about what you would encourage people to do day to day that you shared with us? You would encourage people to do day to day to sort of balance out their emotions. Because a lot of times, even now, like after the event, for example, something will happen. Like we had somebody from our team who's moving on to a higher position with a huge opportunity. Now, and although I love that and I'm grateful, right? It's a little bit of a whammy, you know, in your brain, so you got to readjust. But then I stacked the benefits and said, okay, well, why is this a good thing, right? What are the benefits of this happening? Then it was like, well, what are the downsides of this happening? And by balancing it out, you almost feel like at peace with it, and you can go about your day feeling more peaceful.
That's it.
Without having emotional hangups here and there and left and right. So what would be your practical advice to people on how to do that on a day-to-day level, and what are the benefits over a sustained period of time, what that could do on your emotional stability? Because I think a lot of people nowadays are just messed up on those.
The higher the volatility, the shorter the lifespan, generally. And most people are all over the place. They don't have to be poised and present. Anytime you're infatuated with something, it occupies space and time in your mind. Anytime you resent something, it occupies space and time in your mind. Those things, your perceptions of those things now run you. Anytime you bring yourself to center and you're not infatuated or resentful and you're poised, you're neither proud. When you resent things, you go pride. When you infatuate things, you go humble. And you're not being yourself. There's no authenticity. The second you bring those into balance, you have equanimity within yourself and equity between you and these people. When you do, you realize that they're worthy of love, you're worthy of love, and there's a love feeling in there, and it's brought into balance. So your intuition is constantly trying to bring it into balance, and learning the questions that are what your intuition is trying to bring to your awareness. It's always trying to bring you unconscious conscious so you can be fully conscious. And if you ask the questions that bring you into the balance, you liberate yourself from a lot of emotional baggage, which ties you up and ages you and gets you present again, which is the immortal self, not the mortal self. So asking yourself, if I see something that I'm down on, you ask, what am I comparing it to? What was it supposed to be? What's the drawback of that? What's the benefit of what's happening? And ask those questions and calm that down, and it comes to center. The moment you do, that thing doesn't run you anymore.
I love that. And there's also an example you gave where you said, like, for example, say you expect a fantasy to happen. Say, well, you know, for the example with the girlfriend thing, right? Like, oh, if she would, I wish she would have stayed with me, or I wish I would have gotten the job, or I wish this. And then you did it as an exercise where to break that disappointment, what you do is you say, okay, well, what's good about the fact that you didn't get that job? Or what's good about that? And once you stack it up, it's not this like pseudoscience thing. You literally just emotionally get conscious of it. And what you're saying is that most people intentionally ignore one side of it and just focus on why it sucks to the max or why it's good. They live in emotional extremities.
It has nothing to do with what's actually there. What's actually there is something worth loving. What you perceive as there is now causing your reality and reactions. So it's just about asking the questions to see both sides of things. When you see both sides of things, you're poised. When you don't, you're poisoned by life.
So the goal is balance.
Well,
love.
Your intuition is constantly being a homeostat to try to bring your electronics and your chemistries and your psychological awareness and your memes and your neuroassociative complexes back into balance. It's attempting to do it. Every memory has an anti-memory. Every facilitation has an inhibition. It's always constantly trying to get a homeostasis, because otherwise there's illness. Illness is a lateralization and a polarization of perception and action. And if we put those back into balance, we bring ourselves into wellness, wholeness.
So would you say most people are misunderstanding their intuition or misrepresenting or miscommunicating?
They're confusing a gut instinct, which is avoidance of something that's painful, with an intuition, which is neutralizing pain in the first place. Intuition takes the pain and finds the upsides to it. And instinct is trying to avoid the pain, like an animal, trying to avoid the predator.
Right.
But you got to realize that most people think the predator's bad, prey is good.
The absolutes.
Yeah, they're absolutes. And they don't realize that the prey, if you had no predator and you had nothing but prey, you would gain weight, you'd be gluttonous, you'd be fat, you'd lose your fitness, and you'd be weighted down and have certain diseases. If you had a predator without a prey, you'd also be eaten and dead, because you'd have starvation. But if you have prey and predator, you maximize your fitness. Because if you know the predator's there, you'll eat just enough to keep food going and to keep your fitness, to keep able to run, but not too much to overeat. So when you live in a fantasy of pleasure without pain and try to avoid all the predator, you have a tendency to want to be a consumer, overeat, overdrug, overstimulate, everything else. Anytime you're not living with a balanced perspective in your executive center and you're back in your amygdala, you're going to go to immediate gratification and addictive behaviors as a compensation for the unfulfillment of not living by your highest value. And that's a symptom trying to let you know you're not living congruently with who you authentically are.
Holy cow. This is so mind-blowing, man. Okay, now what about love? How do you define love? And at your breakthrough experience, you talked about how the end goal of everything is love, and love is the acceptance of both parts. And how I sort of verbalize it to myself, and correct me if you think this is not the most accurate assessment, is that, for example, you were saying if somebody aspires to be in an ideal relationship, right, or have an ideal business, or I want to be positive all day long, you're much better off, or much more, you're going to be much more effective if you go out into the world saying, hey, I'm going to start a business. I expect to have some upsides and downsides, right? Some good times and some challenges. And I fully appreciate both as they serve me on my mission. Versus saying, oh, I hope things go well this year, right? Or versus that. You know, can you give a little bit of insight on that?
Yeah, you know, when Jim Collins wrote a book on leadership and a great little piece, and it talked about Bill Gates and Paul Allen and sometimes having fist fight matches in the boardroom. And the guy from Apple, you know, Steve Jobs, he had sometimes high volatilities too. There is no such thing as a up, up, up and away, positive mania, euphoria, utopia, fantasy. That is probably the most devastating thing to have addictions to that. Life has both sides. You're going to have peace and war. I was speaking at a peace conference. This is quite funny. I've spoken at 3 peace conferences. And one of them I stood up and this is at the Milk Abbey in Austria, over the Danube. It's a beautiful abbey. Had the Dalai Lama there, Wolf Singer there, Muhammad Yunus, Nobel Prize winner Paul Nernst. As a really great group of people. There were 200 people in attendance. They were trying to solve 6 world problems. I got to be one of the speakers there. And I'm getting up in there, and it's supposed to be a peace conference too. It's kind of that's why the Dalai Lama's there, right? He's all right, peace. Yeah. And I said, I stood up, and I had 200 people there. I had media from all over the world there, filming in and everything. And I said, how many of you have moments of inner peace? I put a little Indian energy on it. How many of you have moments of inner peace? And all the hands went up. They all smiled like this, because that's what's appropriate.
Right.
That's the fantasy. And then I had them, they all said yes. I could, how many have moments of inner turmoil and conflict? And everybody looked at each other and no one wanted to put their hand up. And I said, I certainly do. And when I did, people started slowly putting hand up and looking around to see if it was okay, because the herd instinct, they didn't want to put it there because they were at a peace conference and they don't want to admit that they have conflict and anger.
Right.
Because that's not appropriate at that place. You're supposed to put on the facade and the dogma that you're one-sided.
Yeah.
But when I told them that I do, and once people started doing it, the people started laughing. Comedy comes out of tragedy, and it's tragedy not to live up to a fantasy. So they started laughing, and it's totally expected, and I can predict this happening every time. So then I go, I have both peace and turmoil. I'm together cooperatively with myself, and sometimes I'm having internal conflict. Okay. Now, then I said, how many of you now find a mate and find your loved one, your soulmate, and finally have total peace? And the whole place started smiling, and they go, no. And I said, what do you mean? Don't you have moments of inner peace with them? Moments of inner peace, but not total peace. And they all agree on that. I said, but you have moments of peace and moments of turmoil with your mate.
Right.
And they all agreed. I got them to do it, and they're laughing. Now people are joking and talking. I said, so inside yourself, you have moments of calm and turmoil. Inside your relationship with the first primary person in your life, your spouse, moments of peace and turmoil. Good. Now, when you have moments of peace and you make love and you have children, would you agree you finally get peace, finally? So you finally get to total peace. And everybody starts bawling, laughing. No, because they know that the kids will scream and yell and there's chaos with kids. I said, there's moments of peace and moments of turmoil. And they all go, yes. So I now got them agreeing to themselves, their spouse, and their family, peace and turmoil. I said, would you agree when you're with your family, an extended family, your family that you've created, and your brothers and sisters' family, and they get in a family union, there's peace, total peace? No, because they're complementary opposite value systems sitting in families. They're designed that way. The summation of all values in a family cancel each other and make love. And I said, so can you see that there's peace and turmoil there? Yes. And then when you go to work, would you agree you have people that agree with you and disagree with you, and cooperators and competitors, and there's builders and destroyers, and there's people that repress themselves and express themselves, and they go, yes. And they come in cliques on Fibonacci sequences, yes. I said, now, The bigger the social dynamic you go, from the individual all the way up, at what point does world peace come about? And they all go, not one individual, not one parent, mother and father,
right.
not one family, not one collection of families, not a social group. In this group, can you see that the speaker that just spoke here, not everybody agreed with it, and it almost caused conflict right here in a peace conference. And there were two people that were arguing about what they believe would bring peace to the world.
Right.
I said, it's a farce. I said, looking for one-sidedness is delusional. And in fact, if you look at the conquest, the largest organizations, if you look at the last 2,000 to 5,000 years in the European area, and from Asia, European, Middle East, everything else, and just watch it on a time-lapse photography, you'll see that all the borders are constantly changing and the countries are expanding and contracting and peace and wars going on constantly. I said, so there's no such thing as a lasting thing. It's a transient thing at best, because there's different value systems and people are trying to grow it. And usually they grow by conquest and they usually recede by peace. I said, so you need both of those, because you need cooperation, competition, support and challenge, ease and difficulties. Because without difficulties and challenge, there's no innovation, there's no creativity, there's no genius. We need both of those in life. And to try to get one side at the expense of the other and getting angry when it's not there is futility and a childish pursuit. That didn't go over well. They didn't ask me back. They didn't ask me back to the talk at the next conference.
Yeah.
But I made them all think, and no one wanted to go to have dinner with me hardly. They're all just kind of like, no. We believe we're going to finally get there. And months after months after months, even Albert Einstein realized that, and he wrote about it. But many people live in the fantasy, and they'd rather be addicted to the fantasy and then be upset with the world instead of embrace life as it is, because the magnificence of how life is far greater than the fantasies you'll impose on it. We grow with both. I don't want one-sidedness. And the child that's pursuing what's highest on their value, they embrace the challenge, because they know that the challenges in the world that they can solve determines the level of the accomplishments that they achieve. So how big of a challenge they can handle in life and how much conflict they can handle is to tell them what great leadership they can handle.
And that applies to everybody.
Everybody.
Like you said, maximum fitness occurs at the intersection of support and challenge, right?
Yeah. The ease and difficulty, order and chaos, support and challenge, whatever you want to call the two.
And then a lot of challenges arises as well when you think about the fact that people project their values onto others. Can you talk about the dangers of that? Once you get aligned and understand your values, how many relationships does that mess up? Culture, religion, across vast groups of people, the projection of values onto others. Can you talk a little about
our animal nature wants us to believe we're right. We filter our reality through our values. We think are right. We think we're smarter than other people, and we make wiser decisions. And even by the way we drive. You look at some people that drive, you think, how can they drive like this? But they believe they're driving great.
Right.
So that natural tendency for our impulse for pride and our natural tendency to be right and to search for pleasure means that we go out there and project our values on people and want them to agree with us. And we want to fit in because we don't want to deal with conflict. And that causes a vicious cycle. And any time you're narcissistically wanting to project your values onto somebody else and expect them to live in your values, you're going to have futility. You're going to have anger and aggression, feel betrayed and blame, criticize and challenge, despair and depression, desire to exit and escape the relationship. You'll have futility and frustration, grouchiness and grief, and hatred and hurt. And those A, B, C, D, F, G, H's of negativity will be a reflection of the projection of their values onto other people, expecting them to live in their values. And the reverse can be, if we minimize ourselves, we can expect ourselves to live in other people's values. And that's what happens when we put people on pedestals. So when we're narcissistically proud and looking down, we try to project our values onto others and expect them to live in our values, which is futile. And if we're altruistically sacrificing from others, we try to do that for others. Both are self-defeating. That's why judgment costs you, because you're pursuing that which is unobtainable.
So the goal is, when you notice the fact that people are living outside of your value system, obviously, unless it's to the point of excessive or they're hurting, people or something like that. But say you're in a relationship, right? It happens a lot, right? Where a man and woman are together, for example, and someone's projecting their value onto the other person. Hey, I don't drink, so you can't drink, or you're not allowed to hang out with these friends, or I don't like going here, so you can't go there. When that type of dynamic is happening, what is really occurring on a subconscious level based on your,
Well, isn't it interesting? You were at the Breakthrough Experience this weekend,
Yes.
And there was a guy who dedicated his life to fitness and health, remember?
Right.
And he ended up with cancer.
Yep.
And then he was angered about his father because he was eating junk food and drinking and everything else, and he's 70 years old almost, and he's still cranking.
Yeah.
and the paradox of this guy was pride and self-righteous, thinking he knows his best about health, and the guy that was he was condemning is still alive, and now the other one's got the cancer.
Yeah.
So we sometimes think we're right, and we don't look at the other person, And anything we're highly infatuated with in ourselves, we attract as a mate the opposite to break our addictions to that, to teach us to balance that mechanism.
So that's a good sign then.
That can be a good sign, a great sign.
When someone's values are a little bit opposed to yours.
Well, you're never going to find somebody that's an exact match. If you'd have the Twilight Zone. You'd have the Twilight Zone. If you woke up and there was a movie in the 1950s called Twilight Zone. You probably remember Rod Serling.
Of course, Rod Serling.
And what happened is went up and this guy gets up in the morning, he comes down his elevator in New York. And he meets these people in the elevator, and he meets people at the counter when he leaves his apartment. Gets in a taxi, meets the guy there, gets to his secretary, and meets people throughout the day. And at the end of the day, he goes, God, I wish everybody was just like me. So he goes to bed the next night, he wakes up, the next morning, everybody's him. It's actually him in different outfits.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, he prays to get me the people back the way they used to be, because he was ready to kill himself.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't handle himself. We think we have this fantasy that we're right. We think if we could get everybody to be like us, life would be great. There'd be no growth. You're designed to get a maximum growth at the border of both support and challenge. And the ancient Greeks said, when you see more similarities and differences, you got infatuation. When you see more differences and similarities, you got resentment. When you see a balance of similarities and differences, you have love. And that's what we require. So when I tell people, if you're looking for a mate, write down everything you're looking for, write down its complete opposite. Write down who's already providing that in your life, so you're not desperate. You realize you already got it. Your values are creating it. Then go and clear with the Demartini method all the people you've done the method on, you've had relationships with, and clear it. And you'll manifest a person that's now going to help you grow and keep you authentic. And that means if you're a little cocky, they're going to bring you down. If you're humble, they're going to lift you up. They're going to keep you being authentic, which is where the power is.
I love that. And then also that manifestation process applies to business, right? A lot of our audience is entrepreneurial minded. So I do want to talk about something that you shared that was phenomenal. And you said during the manifestation process that, there's many components to it, right? From writing things down to visualizing, but also to sharing, and this is probably the most powerful, to sharing an appreciation for the fact that, like, instead of saying, for example, right, a lot of people write down in their manifestation journals, I see myself making this amount of money, or I see myself doing this, or I see myself attracting the perfect partner, or I see myself this. But what you were saying, it was more so along the lines of like, I see myself fully appreciating the support and challenges that the ideal significant other would create for me, right? Where you're acknowledging both the upsides and the downsides along the journey, because then it's more realistic to your brain and your bullshit radar doesn't go off when you're just deluding yourself to writing things down.
Exactly.
Can you talk a little bit, zoom in a little bit more about, in your assessment, the most effective way for people to manifest their dreams beyond just a pseudoscience manifestation word?
Well, if you're pursuing something that's high in your values and your executive center comes online, the executive center is designed to transcend and transform fantasies into true objectives. A true objective, the word objectivity means even-minded, neutral, balanced, not opinion, not subjectively biased, not partials. But the fantasy down below is a partial. I want to avoid pain, seek pleasure. So there's no way you can do that without bringing up bullshit meter that says, hey, bullshit, 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 your goal is fantasy.
And your subconscious won't let you off the hook.
Your subconscious won't allow you to do that, because your subconscious is always trying to bring up the unconscious side that you're ignoring to try to make you see both sides. Full consciousness is the embracing of those. So a real objective is somebody you write down, like the Stoics did, looking for meaning. The word meaning means the mean between polarities. That's what it means. So if you don't have the meaning, if it doesn't have meaning to you, it doesn't have the balance of those two, you really don't have anything but a fantasy. And you're looking for a pleasure without a pain. And then when they're not prepared for the pain, because you're trying to avoid that part, and they're not prepared. So anytime you're not pursuing challenges that inspire you, you're going to attract challenges that you're trying to avoid. And when you do, you have distress. When you pursue challenges that inspire you, you have eustress. Eustress is wellness promoting. And you don't age there. If you work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and not age, like Bill Pollock, who runs Drake International, is like that. But if you go out and try to go out a fantasy, and you keep having these nightmares, and your life is constantly distressful, you'll burn out and you'll have cardiovascular problems and strokes and all kinds of things because of the frustration that life's not matching your fantasy.
Now, what about if somebody's saying, so for example, let's take me for example, I know a lot of people have dealt with this where I've said, okay, I want to focus on my fitness. So then, for example, now I'm doing swimming, right? I do this stuff, I get inspired, I fall through, and I'll do it for months at a time. And then I'll be like, I'll wait on the motivation a little bit. I still have the same intent. I want to get in shape. I want to be fit. But a part of me feels like I should do that. That should be a value. And it is, but maybe not as intensely as I'm like trying to discipline myself to make it. When that happens to people, and I'm sure people are listening who went to the gym for a couple months but then it fall off, what, in your assessment, what's going on there? Am I deluding myself into trying to convince myself it's a value and it's really not?
Yeah, that's all. It's not highest on your value.
And there's nothing wrong with that?
Yeah, look at the time you've been working out. Go to the time when you worked out and you kind of waned after 2-3 months.
Okay.
Right, you got into it and everything else. There was something that was more important on your life at the time when it started waning.
Sure, yeah.
And it may be doing these podcasts, for instance.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so if you had a choice between podcast opportunity, like sitting here, and doing a workout, which are you going to take?
I'd sit down here with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you know that as long as there's a higher value system on there, you're going to make a decision according to it. Like I may, I'll do my research, but if I have a speaking opportunity, I'll stop my research and go do my other thing. But if I don't have a seminar, I'm going to do my research.
So would you say, okay, so intuitively what comes to mind is like, oh, but I feel guilty if I let myself off the hook.
That's only because you can never feel guilt in your own value system. You can only feel guilt in the values you've injected from outside authorities.
Why does that guilt so heavy?
Because you're comparing yourself to somebody else and you're thinking, I should be doing this. One of my mentors works out every day, I should be doing that. And so as long as I put them on a pedestal and minimize myself, I'll be beating myself up thinking I should be doing like them. But they have a different set of values. That's why you don't ever want to try to be somebody that's not in the same value structure or similar. You'll beat yourself up. I watched that in the 80s with doctors trying to follow these consultants, and they were just miserably beating themselves up over what they think they should be doing and that they don't do.
So how do you know when you're living in values that you should keep or living in a value system that you should change?
Shoulds, ought tos, supposed tos, got tos, have tos, must. All imperative language is a sign of an outside value. Indicative language is, I love it, I'm inspired by it, I made a decision, this is what I love doing.
And you'll attract and repel based on what is your natural self.
That's enough stuff. I love researching, writing, traveling, and teaching. I delegate the rest away. There's no should there. I don't need to go, oh, I should be doing a talk. I don't have that in my head.
So over 40 years, you've never had times you're like, oh, shit, I gotta get up, another talk, I never.
Not from doing a talk, not from doing, I mean, if I got an opportunity to do talk and do research and stuff, I do it. But if you ask me to do other things,
then
I'll have that.
Yeah.
So that's not me. But I don't expect myself. I gave that expectation by the age 30 or so. When I did an exercise on positive thinking, I gave that up and realized how ridiculous that was.
And you haven't missed an event, you said, in almost 40 years?
I've been speaking 46 and a half years.
Yeah.
I don't miss events. I only missed one because we had a baby that was being delivered.
Yeah.
And I told him I was going to be here for the delivery because I delivered it. and I had a fever one time, but even with the highest fever, I didn't stop doing the seminar. Somehow when you do it, when you get up there, the adrenaline goes, and adrenaline suppresses some of the symptoms and takes the sympathetic, it opens up the blood vasculature to the lungs and opens up the vasculature, and all of a sudden you're not having some of the symptoms. So I found when I'm up there, and once I'm up there, I'm fine.
So would you encourage people to go out and try a bunch of different things so that they can go taste life and then see what sort of strikes their intuition as what they want to do?
Your life is demonstrated in your values. Your values are being demonstrated by your life. All you got to do is look at your life. People look for something outside instead of looking at what they're doing every day. I had a lady in London. She came to me.
And everybody has a purpose.
Everybody has it. Whatever's highest on your values is your purpose.
What if people say, for example, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here as we wrap up, what if someone says, well, you know, what's highest on my values, I love working out, traveling, and food, but how do I make money doing that?
Well, the thing is, they think they need, if they don't have a value on money, they won't. So we're assuming that they're going to have a value on money. Some people never have big values on money, and they'll end up marrying somebody that has a value on money.
But they feel guilty about
They feel guilty because they think they should.
So in reality, you're saying somebody could truly live their most inspired life not being a millionaire, even though they've deluded themselves into thinking
I guarantee you, there are people out there that have absolutely no intention to ever get financially ahead.
And will live a more fulfilled life than somebody making $100 million.
That's it. See, if you have a value on wealth building, you're going to go, wow, they're amazing, they got money.
Yeah.
Not everybody has focus on money. There are 7 areas of life. Personally, I want to master all of them. That's mine.
What are they to you for the audience listening?
Well, everybody has a mind development quest. They want to be intelligent, they want to learn and continue to grow. They want to have a business quest. And that could be a business of creating a kid that's a product into the world. They want to have financial. They want to build a relationship. They want to have social influence, be remembered and make some sort of impact. They want to have physical vitality and beauty and looks and hope that somebody wants to make love with them. They want to have some sort of spiritual inspiration, whatever that means, maybe religious or other than that. But each of those can be empowered. I train people on how to empower all of them. But if you have a hierarchy of values, you're going to focus on certain ones more than others. And if you don't know how to link the other ones to those highest values, those will probably fade. I had a guy that worked, and I mentioned this on an interview the other day, that I had a guy that worked for 48 years doing a radio show 7 days a week, 6 to 8 hours a day and had 50 million followers on his radio show. His name was Michael. And I got to go on that show, and I met him on the show, and I got to do 2 shows, one live and another pre-taped.
Right.
When I walked to his place, I came in on a limo from San Francisco. I came to his place. It was a warehouse. He lived in a warehouse. Him and his wife lived in a warehouse all those years. And I went through this place and went up and down these aisles of archives of shows, from big reel-to-reel stuff all the way down to the newest technology over the 48 years. And this guy, I saw, when I stopped and I looked, I went, is that a Jimi Hendrix thing? Yeah, well, I've interviewed Jimi Hendrix. I've interviewed all the presidents since the last 48 years, all the celebrities, all the musicians. I've interviewed them all. He's like the Larry King of radio. And I'm like going, whoa, this guy is sitting on a friggin' gold mine. I'm thinking there's Led Zeppelin, there's the Rockstars, Jimi Hendrix. Yeah. And in each of those interviews, if I sold for $10, I could sell a million of those videos, of those little interviews. So he's sitting on literally $1 billion. At the end of my interview, he comes up to me and says, he hands me a piece of paper, and it looked like it had been copied for 48 years, asking for $1, $5, $10, $20, or $50 denominations to help his radio show continue because he's a charity. So here he is sitting on $1 billion, but he never had a value on wealth building, financial wealth. He had social wealth and intellectual property wealth, but he never converted it into financial wealth. When he died, the people who took over his system finally did. Now it's available. But he was sitting on $1 billion and never knew he had it. And everybody's sitting on $1 billion worth of assets, but sometimes their assets is in their beautiful children. Sometimes it's in their beautiful looks. Sometimes it's their social connections. Sometimes it's in intellectual property. Sometimes it's in actual business savvy. I know people have incredible business savvy, but still no cash, no financial assets accumulated, unless they sell it. So everybody has wealth, but it's not necessarily in financial wealth until they convert it. And financial wealth has to be high enough on their values to convert it. And so what people do is they have a fantasy they're going to be financially independent, but they don't have the values that will ever lead them there. And they die with sitting on assets they never recognized.
So would you say true fulfillment exists not in mastering all 7 areas of life? Let me rephrase that. Would you say that? Let me ask you actually. So how would you say someone achieves true fulfillment at their highest level?
Know their values and honor what those values are by fulfilling those values. And anything that's not high in their values, delegate it to other people. They can marry a husband that does those other ones, or they can link those other ones to it and empower all of them. So I show people how to do both. But just know that if you marry somebody and delegate it, you're dependent. But if you go and empower all of them, you're most freed. That way you're empowered. And that's where you're more likely to attract another person that's empowered in all areas and have a covalent shared relationship instead of an ionite needing relationship.
Gotcha. Okay, 2 more questions. How does somebody change their values? I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but say someone goes, okay, cool, and now I got conscious of what was running my value system. How does somebody know, I guess it's a 2-part question, how does somebody know when they should change their values, and then how do they change their values?
Well, there's no should.
Okay, gotcha.
So take out the should.
Okay.
What happens is I tell people before you ever try to think about changing your values, first stop setting goals outside them and see what level of fulfillment you have. Because the second you let go of outside expectations that aren't matching your values, you may find yourself incredibly fulfilled. There's nothing to change. Because many people want to change it because they're fantasizing, because they're beat up. They're beating themselves up because they're not getting what they think they want, and they think they want it over here. I'm not against changing values. I show people how to do that in Breakthrough. I do it for people consulting. But you stack up a value or the action steps that fulfill that value. It's got to be the action steps, because you only have control over perceptions, decisions, and action. It's got to be an action step. Once I find out what those action steps that give you the result in that value, like these are the financial things that give you wealth building. These are the things that help relationships.
Specifically.
The specific action steps that have got a proven track record. And stack up the benefits in your mind of those to your values by how specifically is doing this going to help me in my life and how specific is going to help me in fulfilling what's valuable right now in my life highest. If I stack up those benefits, the more I stack, the more I end up increasing the probability of doing it. Because every decision is based on what you believe will give you the greatest advantage over disadvantage. So once the advantages outweigh the advantage of anything else, you'll now do that over the other things that you were once doing.
So you do that until there's a change in behavior.
So there's a change in behavior. And that usually takes about 200 links.
Gotcha. So you'd say, can you give one quick practical example, just so somebody listening can actually go and apply it right now? Can you give one example?
So in other words, a person, they go out and they're spending money on depreciables, consumables and depreciables. a Louis Vuitton purse. They spend 4 months of their life saving money so they can go get one purse. And then they go, now I can't get ahead. Okay, now, when you go buy a purse, let's say you go out and earn $50,000 a year and you save $500 at the end of the year, 1%, which a lot of people do. And that purse costs $5,000. Let's just make up, it's probably more.
Right.
Okay, so how much is that? That's 10 years. But you actually had to save 10 years worth of that. Now what you do is you got to multiply that times 50,000 times 500. That's 100-fold. That means you had to make 100-fold times that to get that, times 5. That's 500-fold what you have to work to get that Louis Vuitton. That immediate gratification cost you 500 times the amount of work effort. You got to stop and look at what you're doing and have a value on, do you want money working for you or do you want to work for money? And sometimes people think, well, I'll get that, then I'll be important, but that's a depreciable that's going down in value. Now, if that opens up a doorway and gives you a return on investment because you close a deal or you get to do it in modeling.
Yeah, or people see you with the new car.
If it gives you more than it returns, then it's an asset.
Right.
And you're now putting money into an asset.
Okay.
I know a guy that bought a Rolls Royce and he charged $10,000 in the morning and $10,000 in the afternoon for a 4-hour consult and a 4-hour consult every single day, 6 days a week, and then paid off his little Rolls Royce in a matter of a few months and had a great asset. So it's not the car what determines, it's what you do with whatever you buy.
Gotcha.
So if you don't have a value on things that go up in value, you're devaluing yourself financially. So you have to write down the benefits of the action steps of those things that go up in value higher than the things that go down in value.
So for example, I want to invest in real estate, right? Or I want to put it into a real estate investment that'll return me money. The benefit of doing that is that will set up cash flow for the rest of my life for me and my family.
If I buy a piece of property that's selected wisely in a moderate price, not overpriced, so I can get a return in a reasonable period of time or possibly get a return immediately, and I now have a passive income coming in and it's helped paying off the cost from the mortgage or whatever you're buying it from, now you've got an asset. And buying real estate and developing that and keeping developing that is a very powerful way of building wealth. Or buying companies that give dividends and capital gains over time that serve vast numbers of people. Now you're buying an asset. But going out and buying a quick purse, maybe, depending on what type of thing you do in your life, if it actually gives you a return on investment, you can justify it, then great. But most of the time it's a depreciable thing and consumables that keep burdening you with debt.
I love that. Well, Dr. Demartini, thank you so much for being on the show. And I have one last question, and this is for the audience around the world. So obviously you've spent almost 47 years now teaching, traveling, and educating people on these fascinating ways of looking at the world and their life. And I want to ask if you could condense your best piece of wisdom to 2 to 3 minutes to someone out there looking to live their best life, get aligned with their values, take action. You shared a lot of wisdom, but if you can condense everything and you had to sort of give the world for lack of a better expression, a kiss goodbye with wisdom, the best stuff you got, 2 to 3 minutes, what would your best advice be if you could talk to anybody and share that wisdom with the world?
Well, you want to give yourself permission to be yourself because most people don't. Most people are frightened. The word courage, as I said in the breakthrough experience, comes from the root heart. And most people don't get to open a heart, which only occurs in a moment of authenticity. And the courage to be yourself, more than doing what other people expect of you, fitting in. The courage to stand out and be unique and to shine, not shrink into conformity, is probably the wisest, most profound thing a person can do that few people get to do. Less than 1% of the population give themselves permission to be unborrowed visionaries and be willing to not envy people, not imitate people, but to actually walk the path of an unborrowed visionary and blaze a new trail as a unique individual on planet Earth. That would be the first thing to do, to give yourself permission to do that, to shine, not shrink. Identify what you really truly value and find out what's really true. Because if you don't know yourself and you're not willing to be yourself, you're not going to love yourself. And you're going to have more difficulty loving other people because they're going to be reflections of what you're not loving in you. So being willing to go out and be yourself and to shine and to prioritize your life every single day towards what's truly most meaningful. Because nobody's going to get up in the morning and dedicate their life to you except you. And if you're not doing it, you're going to be automatically inundated with everybody else's projections, which is called entropy in physics. You're automatically going to age. You're going to end up dealing with the frustrations and the distractions of mediocrity. when you, in fact, can have an amazing life by being truthful to yourself about what it is you really want to do. And at first, you're going to get ridiculed. You're going to get violently opposed by being unique because you're going to break the paradigm and the traditions of stagnation through history. But eventually you're going to come out on top, and eventually you're going to change the paradigm, and you're going to give yourself permission to emerge as a spontaneous leader, which is the truth of who you really are. And if you do that, you'll be able to say thank you and have tremendous amount of gratitudes on a nightly basis, which when you're grateful for what you got, you get more to be grateful for, and you can fulfillment. And fulfillment is filling full the mind of all the things that you've judged that has created an emptiness in your life, and giving yourself to transcend those judgments and to be able to go out and do something you love. To me, if a person does that, they're going to have a pretty amazing life. And there's sciences that help people do that. I've spent most of my life, 46, 7 years of my life, looking at how to do that and teaching that. So if a person learns those principles and those methods to do it, there's no reason why they can't do it. I've seen people at different ages do that, young ages, old ages. So you just got to give yourself permission to do something extraordinary on planet Earth, because a real, true you is extraordinary.
I love that. And then last question, the bonus question, how do you define love?
I define love as a synthesis and synchronicity of all complementary opposites that are perceivable by the phenomenological mind. It's the synthesis and synchronicity of opposites. So if you see things that you like, you'll have things that are disliked. The two together make up love. Positive and negative make up love.
So love isn't just kindness or just the good stuff.
No, that's the fantasy. Love is a kind and cruel, nice and mean, and positive and negative, and peace and war. It's all the pairs of opposites that are synchronous there. When I was in the breakthrough experience, I did a little exercise on Sunday where everybody get present, go to a moment where they perceived an individual doing something that they despised. You there? Great. Where are you? When are you? What is exactly the content? What's the context? Who are they doing it to? And at that exact moment, who is doing the opposite? And people went, oh my God, there's somebody doing the opposite. And I showed them that there's a hidden order in their apparent chaos. But their immanent mind, their little animal mind that's avoiding pain and seeking pleasure is blind to it. And it lives in sort of an existential world that's blind to the inner essence of life. But once you get present and you extract out space and time in the mind and get presence with the guidance of the inner soul, if you will, the inner true you, the state of unconditional love, you see that there's nothing but love. All else was illusion. And I love helping people see that. Because as Leibniz said in his Discourse on Metaphysics under divine perfection, the people that get that, their lives are changed forever. And you've made your immortal effect, the legacy that you would desire to leave on the planet.
And when you're in that state of love, that's where all the answers come.
Well, there's no questions left. So the answers are revealed inside the question.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Demartini. We'll end it on that note. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, be sure to check out Dr. Demartini in all the descriptions below, as well as check out all the events he has coming up. And don't forget to take your value determinant test so you can find out what drives you. Until next time, thank you, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you so much for enjoying this video. And if you found this content valuable, uplifting, and inspiring to take your life and your business to the next level, then I have some exciting news for you. Because the Passionate Few Academy officially launched our brand new on-demand training that you can access absolutely free at www.tpfacademy.com. Right there, you'll learn the #1 way to grow your personal brand or business brand online fast. The same way I've learned from interviewing some of the most successful people on the planet right here on the show who've done exactly that. So again, don't forget to check it out, www.tpfacademy.com. I promise you, you'll be blown away. And also, don't forget, there's 3 ways you can connect with me further. #1, you can text me absolutely free at the number on the screen right now and send me your most pressing life, business, or branding question, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. #2, if you'd like to be interviewed on the show, you can actually apply right now in the description below and apply to share your incredible story, brand, or business right here with an audience of potentially millions of people, the same way we've helped experts, entrepreneurs, and authors just like you. And don't forget, that opportunity comes with the ability to partner with us and help feed 1 million people through our partnership with Feeding America. Again, you can click the link in the description below titled Interview Application to find out more. And last but not least, #3, if you'd like to get consulting from our team and work with you to help you grow your personal brand or business brand, no matter what industry you're in, we can do that by simply filling out the questionnaire in the description below titled Consulting Application. And if our team thinks that you'd be a great fit, who knows, you may just be invited to work with us to help you take your business to the next level. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for enjoying this video. Make sure to smash that subscribe button, turn on post notifications so you never miss an episode. And until next time, live strong, live with passion, and I'll see you in the next inspiring video.